less than one man's lifetime, we've had our country completely changed before our eyes, and most people didn't want or ask for it.
Guys, I really want you to have a listen to this phone in It Was to Talk that just sums up perfectly what is wrong with this country and how ignored and resentful the British people feel about how their politicians have treated them.
Hi, good morning, Renee. Good morning, Christine.
Good morning.
I just want to say that you were talking about Islamophobia earlier on, and I was sort of thinking to myself, how I think it might be a natural state of mind, because if you think that now in our country, I mean, I'm from London, I'm 47, I grew up in SE21, and when I was a kid, people were beaming messages on our Houses of Parliament. We didn't have anti-Jewish and anti-British marches in London. We hadn't imported FGM, honour killing, sham marriage, suicide bombing, the full veil, grooming gangs, all from the Islamic third world. And I think for the past 20 or 30 years, we've been telling our government that we didn't want illegal immigration at all, and we wanted legal immigration cut down to extremely low numbers, because we know on the ground that this is what it leads to. Now the MPs' lives are in danger and they're being harassed, they're kind of catching up with the public. We've seen the degradation. When I was a kid in London in the early 80s, if someone got stabbed or shot, my whole family gathered around the TV. Oh my God, someone got stabbed in Camberwell. It was a shock. Yeah. Now it happens 3 times a day and we don't pay any attention. So we've seen the degradation. We've seen third world immigration ruin the country. If we're looking at crime, for argument's sake, right? Homogenous countries, if you look at the Eurostat figures, homogenous countries have the least amount of crime. So Slovenia, Slovakia, Hungary. I think Poland's got the least amount of crime with the least amount of immigration. You can take examples like Japan. Homogenous countries tend to be more unified, tend to have less crime. I think most people in this country are living in a country they didn't want or ask for or vote for.
I think this is just such an important point to make, right? I know we have loads of people who are saying, oh, immigration doesn't cause an increase in crime. That's just your racist stereotyping that you're engaging with. But, look at the stats. Look at what, listen to what this guy has just said here. The countries with low immigration are the ones with lower crime. Now, you could say correlation doesn't imply causation. Sure. But I mean, just think about it logically. If you import the third world, you import the third world's problems. If you import people from countries where crime is far more normal, it's far more a part of their culture than the UK, what do you expect?
Where has that come from? Do you think that it's come from... Because I've had arguments about this with friends who've said, well, actually, you have to blame partly the state for that, because if the state doesn't sanction, if the state doesn't facilitate people integrating and being part of an overriding culture, an overriding feeling of belonging in the UK, then there is some responsibility with the people who move here, but there's also a big responsibility on the state for allowing that to happen. What would you say to that?
Well, I'd say if you were an adult before 1997, which I was in my mid to late teens, I think after that date, when Blair got in and intentionally rubbed the noses of the right in diversity, I think after that point, what we invented was multiculturalism, which is a complete lie. What we should be saying at the door, there's 2 factors. Number 1, at the door, this is Britain, this is how we operate. If you don't like it, you don't have to live here, okay? And I think the sheer volumes of people, we were talking about maybe a quarter added to the population since the early 90s. I mean, if you think about it this way, in 1951, if you look at the census results, 98.8% of the British public were Christian, spoke English as a first language, and were white. Okay, and in less than one man's lifetime, we've had our country completely changed before our eyes, and most people didn't want or ask for it. So no one ever wanted this. I'm from London. I moved out because I didn't want to live there, and most people up and down the country think this way. And also, in the last 7 or 8 general elections, one of the top 3 topics on the doorstep has been immigration. We've asked the government for 10, 20, 30 years. We gave them explicit instructions to stop illegal immigration and bring legal immigration down to low numbers, and they've ignored us, okay? So that's red and blue. So what do? How else can we make it clear that we didn't ever want this? How can we were never asked.
This is a really good point. So many Brits feel this frustration of what else can I do? I have exercised my democratic rights over and over and over again. I've used my free speech to talk, to post on social media, to do whatever I can do to voice my frustrations about immigration. Yet nobody is listening and nobody is changing. And then you wonder why we've had riots on the street. Well, there are a lot of Brits who have felt like they've got nothing else to resort to, right? I'm not saying that riots are a good thing and that riots should happen. I'm just saying it explains it quite well.
You'd called in when Jonathan was here. What an eloquent way to explain how people... Did you? We didn't take calls in that hour, so you weren't ignored. I mean, it's a beautiful way of summarising how people who are actually living outside of the Westminster bubble are feeling, I think.
Yeah, well, this is the thing, Renee. Most people in the UK, I'd imagine, if we had a referendum, would agree with me. But I'm being ignored, OK? I moved out...
And do you think what's happening on the streets when it comes to the extremism we're seeing in some of that protest, do you think that is how what you're describing has manifested?
Well, absolutely. If you think about it, right, I'm an Englishman that lives in England. I don't know any Israeli Jews. I don't know any Palestinians. I've never met a Russian or a Ukrainian. Why have I got this on my news 24/7? Why are hundreds of thousands of people in my capital city anti-British, anti-Jewish sentiment? I've got nothing to do with it, and I don't want anything to do with it. I don't know why they're protesting in London.
Yeah, brilliantly well said there. I don't know why the footage that was put with it was just several minutes of someone's dash cam footage, but I think the content of what the guy was saying there was just absolutely spot on. I mean, I don't even have much more to add to it because I think that he explained it so perfectly. So yeah, let me know in the comments, guys, how do you feel as a Brit? Do you feel like you have been ignored? And where do you think we go from here? If democracy is not working, what do we do? Rioting is not the answer. What is the answer? Tell me in the comments what you think. Is it possible for reform to break through and save us from this immigration disaster? Or will they always be a small party? Let me know in the comments what you think. See you soon.